On this episode of the Dudes and Dads podcast, we talk with our friend Carla Hochstetler about education.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Andrew,
Joel,
how are you?
I was asking you the same thing.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm better now. I was working on our car earlier today.
You've had some car problems, troubles.
Alternator, you can't get it out. It's terrible.
Did the alternator go out on you in an inconvenient place, or did you manage to get that baby home?
I got it home, but
Good.
It's in and out. Like it's charging and it stops charging.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Alternator woes. The first time I ever had an alternator go out on me, Andy, because I know you wanted to know, I was 16 years old, driving my car out of the very large parking area at Michigan International Speedway after a race. And the worst time an alternator can go out is when you were in a giant mob of people trying to leave a major sporting event. So thanks for bringing up that car trauma for me. So glad that was a repressed
how are you?
memory. Man, I'm so good. I want to just give a shout out to my lovely wife, Jackie, who just dialed it in this evening and made breakfast for dinner. And I love a good breakfast for dinner.
Yeah.
The pancakes, the eggs, the bacon, we did it all.
It's good. That's good. Bacon.
Bacon's particularly, and she made a lot of bacon, so much bacon actually that she had to open the windows in the kitchen because it
got smoky. We
got a lot of bacon smoke in there. So I've got that. I'll look forward to that and returning home with the bacon smell at the DeMott household. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dudes and Dads podcast. Glad to have you here.
Hey Joel, you know what I was thinking about before we get our guest on tonight?
Yes,
it is almost Christmas time.
It is Christmas. Well, it'll be here before we know it.
Close enough.
Close enough.
You could also get this for Thanksgiving, but we have a merch store.
We do.
You can get your Dudes and Dads merch, and it's merch.dudesanddads.com.
What a great stocking stuffer to get yourself just that Dudes and Dads tee that you've been wanting, or the hat.
Yes.
The sweatshirt.
Since it is turning cold.
It is. Do we have beanies?
We
have the coffee.
Yes, we do.
We have the gas station coffee review beanie.
You can show up to Thanksgiving with it. It'll be better than other conversations you could have.
Yeah, exactly. What a great conversation starter to show up with your Dudes and Dads podcast apparel. So head on over to the store, check it out. All my kids, not to spoil it, but all my kids are getting a Dudes and Dads gift this year because I believe in shameless self-promotion and leveraging my young people to get out there and get the word out about the podcast. And you too can join in on wearing and being one of our billboards and wearing some merch. Hey, thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it in advance. Buy our stuff.
Yes. So we are talking education tonight, and so I wanted to bring Carla on. Carla is a local principal here in our area. My youngest daughter goes to the school that she principals at, which is how I know her. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
Hi, Carla. Oh gosh, we were just telling Carla that she is on this what was really an elite and select group of amazing women that have been on this show. We tend to get a lot of surprisingly enough on the Dudes and Dads podcast, a lot of dudes and dads on here. But when we know that there is, it doesn't matter, dude, dad, dudette, whoever. When we want to have a conversation with someone who knows things about things, we bring them in.
Right.
And Carla's that person who knows things about things.
So
specifically.
So how come normally we ask dad stats, but since you're not a dad, we'll just ask the
Carla stats.
The Carla stats, meaning family, kids, husband, dogs, pets, whatever you want to tell us.
I have all those things. So
nice.
That's a great start.
That's
great.
good.
My husband, JB, and I have been married for 25 years.
Yes.
Lived in Goshen all of our married life. And we have three kids. Our oldest, Noah, is 20. He is recently engaged, so we're going to add. I'm going to add mother-in-law to all of my extra titles.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. He's getting married in June. Then we have two seniors, our daughter Greta, and we have a son, Moosey. They're both 18.
Awesome,
but not twins.
Oh,
I know. You can just do the math or wonder about it, or
we're going to leave everybody. No, seriously, how in the world did you do it? How have you managed to somehow circumvent typical chronology in having children what's the story?
Right. So we had our oldest son, Noah. Then 2.5 years later, Greta was born. And then about 2 years after that, we brought our third son home, middle in age, 13 days apart from our youngest daughter, Greta. Lucy was adopted from Ethiopia, and he has been home with us for about 15 years.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
So you are now, you share this in common, one of the third guest who has a child from Ethiopia on the show. So awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think raising kids that are that close in age is a thing, because there's not the older younger sibling dynamic between the two of them in the way.
Correct.
It's more of maybe a competitive spirit.
Well, I think it would have been more competitive had they been the same sex. So one boy, one girl helped.
Yep.
When he came home, Greta was very much so. She was born talking. He came home speaking no English. So it was a perfect combination.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But twins at 3, not from birth, but from 3 on.
That's awesome.
And you previously mentioned that you've been in education for 25 years, been married for 25 years. So you started both of those adventures at the same time, roughly.
We literally got married on Saturday, and I went to work on Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
We call that poor planning in my house. I don't know what educator gets married in August, but this one did. And so every year I'm like, happy anniversary, we'll celebrate later. So it's almost always the first day of school or the first week.
That's so great. It's just similar. It's not quite like this, but my birthday is always right when we come back from winter break. And it always feels like a real letdown to have your birthday after a vacation. And it's like everybody's coming back kind of like down and like, whatever. And it's like, hey, happy birthday to you. So someone should, I don't know, my parents could have planned, but my mom is retiring this coming year from education. So
congratulations to her. She's made it.
I don't know if she's listening, but it's time.
So we wanted to specifically talk to you tonight about ways that parents in general, but I think specifically men, can support their kids' education. So I think, like what comes to mind when we say kids' education and parents supporting?
Well, start out with a loaded question. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So actually one thing that came to mind when I thought about this, just this last Thursday night, we had a literacy night. WNIT was there. They were promoting their channel, but also literacy things you can do with your kids. And I was so impressed, probably 80 people in the room. So impressed how many dads were there with their kids.
Nice.
And not the moms.
Really?
Like there were parents there, both. Love that. But the dads who came with just their kid, it was significant. It stood out to me. I was like, good for you. I actually went around and was like, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yep.
Some of them have little people at home. So mom was probably home with them. Some of them, I think, only children. But I was like, that was really impressive to me to see. I don't think that happens enough, but that they would take the time Thursday night, 6 o'clock, hour and a half to come hang out with their kid and bring them to school, which is just not the norm.
Yeah. So going on 2 years ago, made the decision to become a PTO president at Goshen Intermediate School. It was sort of the school was new, and so it was like they needed a PTO, and no one wanted to be president. Ding, ding, ding. And so I happened to be in the room. But one of the reasons that I took that step was this desire to get more dads involved in. And we've seen that. In your perspective, I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons why maybe stereotypically we don't see dad's involvement. My guess would be, I'll throw out my guess and see if this kind of resonates or what your experience has been. Traditionally it's kind of, well, dad does a lot of all the other stuff, and mom is kind of like the school, like the default school person. Mom's going to be the one that has the conversations with teachers. Mom's going to be the one that does the volunteering, that sort of thing. And I wonder where that comes from. If this is just kind of if there's kind of a traditional role and understanding here, a default, or if there's maybe some other challenges or things that are also going on that kind of tend to make that happen. Because it's definitely been my observation from my my vantage point.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's probably the traditional role that we have seen, that as dads, I don't know, probably started when dads were working more. Maybe moms were staying home. And I think I wonder if that's where it started. And then it has come maybe full circle. It definitely also is about who fills out the paperwork. If I'm being super honest, like, right, you put mom's name first and dad's name. So when I go look up to call somebody, primary contact is typically mom. And so that's just interesting as well. But I don't know where it started. I would assume there. And then I think dads are obviously more than qualified and sometimes know their kids way better. I often will say to kids, who do you want me to call? If they
So if you were to give a percentage of that, what would be the percentage that say dads?
Most of them say call mom. My kids would have said call dad because they knew mom would be way harder because mom works at school. Mom knows mom's always going to take teacher's side first. Dad's probably a little more fair in my house. I'm going to be like, no, your teacher's right. You were probably wrong. But yeah, I think most kids say call mom. Yeah.
That's interesting. When you see or experience a kid who, like any given student, and his teachers are thinking through this, you know, a lot of the kids that I serve in my job, I mean, dad is just not in the picture altogether. And I know that depending on the demographic and where our schools are and all that can shift. So you have these homes where mom and dad are not in the same household together. That's a very real everyday reality. How do you as a principal? I'm sure that's a scenario that you
Sure.
see and experience. How do you as a principal think through, or how teachers think through bringing mom and dad to the table? Maybe not the same table at the same time, but trying to engage both. I would imagine that's a pretty significant challenge.
Right. I think that there's both ways. So parents who are together, mom and dad are there. I think traditionally somebody's just kind of taking the lead, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
That somebody's the person of contact, the person who's on the Remind app, who's getting all those text messages from the teacher. Moms and dads can both be on it, and I always encourage them to both because then they have the information. So I think there's that part of it. There's also split families, and then you have families that sometimes can get along really well together and they can come together and share their 15-minute conference. And then we've got families who can't, and they both need that time.
Yeah.
I think involving parents though is the biggest thing when they know what's going on in their kids' education. And quite frankly, that's got to be more than the spelling test.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing teachers and I talk about a lot. That's the one thing parents are like, I can do that. I know how to do that. So helping parents make sure they understand the changes in curriculum. It's not the way we did math when we were in school.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear that a lot,
Right.
and I'm like, well, me either. But have your kid teach you, reach out to your teachers, ask the questions, find those resources that you need so that you can support your kids, because they do need your support and they do need to know that what's happening at school is important to them more than how was your day? Fine. I just told the story tonight to somebody that we have people who come to school and look to sign out their kids. I'm like, oh, who's their teacher? I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, what grade?
Yeah.
4th. Okay, I'll give them 3 choices. And they're like, maybe. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just look it up. Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't happen a lot, but it's just interesting to me where I'm like, are you having any kinds of conversations at home about school and the adults that you're spending all of this time with? I mean, people, I'm floored when I think about it. They bring their kids to school, they drop them off, they trust them with us for 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I've been guilty of this at times. Like, I'm sure it's going fine.
Sure, it's good.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it's
Until
great.
it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think to your point too, I think some of that, especially as they get older too, that makes it even harder to get involved because it's easy for me with Hattie, right?
Yeah.
And the stuff I can go through that and learn and know that stuff pretty easily. But when I get up into the upper grades with my other kids, sometimes that I don't remember that stuff. It's been
Sure.
a long time since I've been in high school, right?
Algebra
Right.
is the other day I pulled out some MX plus B thing out of the back of my brain. Now, do I know what it means? No. But I remember, like, I was talking with Josiah about this eighth grade math. And there is that point where you do start feeling like I am not I have a son, Aaron. He's in an intro to engineering class right now. They're doing CAD design and things. Yeah, not in my not in my skill set, right? But the earlier ages, and I think this is, Carla, I'd be interested. How much is it really about you staying in step with your kids and knowing all the things through school versus those early years of intervention, the reading together? I think just some of the basic things, right? Like the
Correct.
reading together.
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, there's no way. None of us can keep up on all those things. And I tell kids even now, I did 6th grade once. I can find out how to do it, but I can't tell you I can do it right now.
Right.
And elementary kids think you know everything, which is pretty awesome most of the time. But then other times you have to admit it. You're like, yeah, I don't know how to do that either.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not going to help my daughter with chemistry anytime soon. But being in relationship enough, and I think what you're talking about, Joel, is giving them the resources and teaching them to be resilient, teaching them to problem solve, teaching them to ask the questions. I can't be with you all day, every day. So you have to go and figure out the answers to these things. So I think that that's part of walking alongside of them as they become adults. But I think it is the basics when they're in elementary school and way before. I tell parents all the time, if you would do one thing with your kid, if you would literally read with them every night or have them read to you. Doesn't matter. Honestly, doesn't matter. Do every other page, every other paragraph. You read to them for the 30 minutes or 20 minutes, have them read to you. And if you did nothing else, we could change the trajectory of kids' lives.
100%. A big effort here in Elkhart County, where we are here in North Central Indiana, for all of you listening outside the area, but a big discussion, important discussion about kindergarten readiness in particular. And we tend to think like education. I think it's easy because it's like, okay, you start in kindergarten. The educational process, to your point, begins so much earlier beyond that, for our kids to thrive and to succeed. And that's where, I think there's all kinds of opportunities, certainly.
Right. And I think reading brings that, right? You don't have to have, you can be reading any book and talk to your kid about what's going on. There's a problem, there's a solution, there's characters, there's all the things that are going on. You don't have to have a degree in education to talk to your kids. And I think that books just bring that out naturally.
Yeah.
You're not trying to look for a situation to talk about. We're just talking about this story.
Sure.
And I think that just interaction with them and them being able to talk about what they read or what they heard is just so meaningful to kids when then they come to school and they have some shared experience, they have some background knowledge, and that's the kind of thing that if we start at 5, some of them can't catch up, or we spend a lot of time trying to catch them up so that they can have a shared experience with their peers who did get all of that.
Yeah, I know for us, there's a book series that my son had read like in high school, and my wife decided to read the same thing, and then it was great to watch them be able to talk back and forth about the characters and the different plots, and it was fun to watch their interaction and how they bonded over that book series. So I like that idea.
Yeah.
So when the kid comes home, this is I think I've probably gotten this question wrong for a long period of time, but when your son or daughter comes home and you want to know about their school day, what is the question that is asked?
The one that you should or you shouldn't ask, because the one we all ask is, "How was your day?"
That's exactly
and
right.
They say fine,
and they say fine, and
or good, or they just stare at you. Yeah, you get a lot of mixed responses, but they're about all one word.
Yes, yeah.
So I think the questions you can be asking, or should be asking, definitely are just more in depth. It can be subject matter. Did you learn something new? No. Well, I send you to school every day. I hope you're learning something new. But I think you got to get past that. How'd you help somebody today? What made you smile?
Yep.
What made you sad? What did you see that you liked? What did you see that you didn't like? I think you have to kind of get past those one word answers where they can just be like good, bad, and dig into that a little bit, because something happened. They were there for 7 hours a day.
Right.
They ate lunch with people. They played with people. They had classroom discussions. They had a special, interacted with all these other adults and kids. But I think it's getting to the heart of it. And sometimes you're still going to get, But I think that there's lots of things we can ask.
And I think it's important to make that conversation not just a one-way conversation too, but where I can say, hey, this is the part of my day that I really enjoyed. I was at work for 8 hours a day and I did this and I interacted with this person. So they know it's not just a, hey, how was your day? I'm trying to fry.
Right. Right. And my kids will ask, and then I'm like, oh, I don't really want to relive the whole day. But then I think modeling that for them and going back to something the good that happened or something that was really difficult. Because I think when mom comes home tired from dealing with everybody else's kids, it has been difficult over the years to be like having something left for them, but just sharing enough so I can keep things private that are supposed to stay private, but giving them enough of a glimpse. My daughter came to school her whole junior year for the first hour of the day because she needed an extra class. That was probably the best thing that ever happened for us because she would come home at night and be like, did things get better? Was the rest of your day good? And I was like, some days, yeah. And other days, like, absolutely not. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
But I love that. Sharing the day with them, I think is important from our perspective as well.
So when we think about learning environments within the home, because obviously the school is a particular kind of learning environment structured in a certain way, but our homes are learning environments too. And, I think all of us would hope that our homes are places that are conducive to learning, that are, especially obviously we'll go out and say at the outset, of my 4 kids, they all learn each a little bit differently. So we're not quite exactly like the custom learning environment for every single one of them, but probably some overarching things that we can do within our homes or thinking about, to be conducive to learning. What would you identify for parents?
Yeah, I think knowing that your kids are all different, I think is huge. Starting there, knowing that every kid is going to learn differently. I tell parents all the time too, when they get home, will you please let them play? Like let them have a break. Let them, whatever that looks like, please go outside and play. That's what I would love them all to do.
Yeah.
To not be on a screen, to engage their minds in some way, but also just to have that mental break and then go back to that homework if there's homework. I think big overall learning environment is just what we're teaching them in the day to day. I think teaching them how to change their alternator in their car is amazing. I hope one of your kids was out there watching that. I hope that
my one kid goes to Wawasi for the thing, the whole automotive thing. So he actually teaches me a lot, but
even better. Yeah. So I think that those experiences where it is just involving our kids in whatever the extra is, church, home, our work, family, changing a tire, an alternator, planting a garden. I think that kind of learning is what's happening. I would love to tell you that I did flashcards with my kids and taught them how to read before they went to school and they knew all the things. They did not. They had amazing teachers who helped them with those things. And I think it's our job to give them that background knowledge of how to learn, like how to sit. And that's where we're at now. Does your kid know how to sit for more than 5 minutes? Can they listen? Can they follow one-step directions? Those are the things that if kids came to school able to do and were ready to learn, then that goes back to that kindergarten thing where we can't catching them up because we can do the academic work. That is our job at school.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah. Because there is a, I'm sure for plenty of young people, for plenty of kids, home is, it's probably a little chaotic. There's a lot of things going on. There's any number of other additional challenges and struggles that they're facing, and our kids are bringing those things with them to school. And this is the increased challenge of a teacher. I think my biggest, for me personally, it's like I would like to say that I have a very firm view on like what the job of the school is and what it is not. And yet it seems to me that the school has become the default place that just tries to be the catch-all for.
Well, yeah, that's shifting. A lot of that is shifting, I think, from like where school is just like education, but you have kids that going there early for food and, all sorts of different things.
Right. And teachers are not parents. Schools are not parents. They are, and that's, we've said on the show again, that's why it's one of the fundamental beliefs of this show is that we as dudes and dads and as parts of families, we have a unique and very specific role that we are to play. And it's not one that gets to be outsourced or should be outsourced. When it's very specifically ours to do, and that's our encouragement for dads specifically, is to be strategic about about the places that you can make an impact, and that's help have the reading time with your kiddo. And it doesn't have to be, by the way, it doesn't have to be long.
No. In fact, for me, a lot of times, especially for Hattie, like as I'm putting her to bed, 5-10 minutes, we'll read through her Bible story that she's got going on there. And sometimes I read and sometimes she does. And so, yeah, it just kind of depends. I like both of it because I like to be able to read to her, but I also like to hear her read. And I know that she does a good job at reading. And so I want to hear it.
Yeah. And I think then that when you read, then you have more time to ask them about what they heard. And that listening comprehension skill is just as important because it's one of those beginning stages of reading when I can understand and have something to talk about. I think that in the classroom, that's what we're always trying to build, is having a place where we're teaching everybody something, pick a subject matter, and then they can, even if they can't read at all, they're having that shared experience with their friends. And then that makes me want to actually try and dig in. Yeah. But back to your point of, schools can't do it all, so we need parents' help, but we have kids, and I think this has been the norm in the greater Elkhart County, because I worked at Elkhart Community Schools for 16 years and then came to Fairfield, which has been amazing, both places, amazing for different reasons. But I think we're just starting to see more in this northern Indiana area just more influx of that schools need to be more for kids. Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard for teachers to be social workers and moms and dads and the nurse and teachers all at the same time. I mean, we're asking them sometimes to do almost impossible jobs.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that's especially for younger teachers. So being someone who's in the non-for-profit world, a good portion of the social workers that I engage with are teachers that went into education, made it 1 or 2 years, and then said, no thanks, right? And there's plenty of those. There's plenty of teachers that my wife is hiring as salespeople who were at somewhere between the 3 and 4 year mark, something like that, and then they made the decision to opt out. And I would say. And Carla, I don't know if you've talked me off a ledge on this. I have a concern that some of our best are leaving.
Right. I think some of our best don't stick it out long enough to be the best because they just get really frustrated and burned out in those first 5 years. Yeah. And so I think if they don't have good administration around them, if there is not good support, then I think it's easy to be like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. Even if you'd ask them, I think 80% of teachers say, I knew I wanted to be a teacher when I was in 3rd grade. I had this great teacher, and by 5th grade, I've always wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. And then you have to have that hard conversation of like, well, if that's what you've wanted, then don't give up too soon. But it is one of the most difficult jobs. Yeah. With the dynamics of school changing. Doesn't have go ahead.
I was going to say, so what can dads, parents, moms do to help support teachers from burning out?
Yeah. I think honestly, it's that being there and knowing that when teachers don't have to always be right. We have one side of the story, like right when we're calling. But I think that when parents call back or have that conversation, can you just trust them and believe them and hear them out through the whole thing? Assume the best from that teacher and that adult in the classroom, or quite frankly, when I'm calling. And your kid's going to have a different side of the story, and that's fine, and that is very fair to the kid to hear their side of the story as well. But the number of conversations, unfortunately, that we get back sometimes of like, well, then he said that you said, and I'm like, yeah, I think so. Just being a listening ear when they call with a problem, and then reaching out in the times when there are no problems, because there's tons of kids who never have problems at school. But I think a encouraging email, phone call, note, you're doing a good job. Thank you for being with my kid for 7. I mean, my kids spend more time with their teachers than they do with me.
Right. Absolutely.
All of us, right? Who send our kids to school, especially when they're little and they go to bed super early once they get home. So I think that connection between home and school is really important. Some people can volunteer in schools. I couldn't. I was at school running my own. I couldn't be at my kid's school, but I tried to reach out to their teachers and let them know, like, I see you. Yep. I know it's hard. I hope my kid's not hard, but probably are sometimes. But I think it's that connection in anything that we do, that human connection.
Well, and I think that's good. I know, we had talked about kind of, traditionally some of the things may have been because moms were stay at home, and so they could do a lot more of the volunteering. And I think so. That's good to know for those of us who can't come in during the day. I have a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job. And so we well, hers is a little bit flexible, but I can't necessarily come in and volunteer during the day. And so that's good to know some things like reaching out to your teachers just out of the, random, just say, hey,
Yep.
good job.
Yeah.
Encouraging them.
I see you. Like we have 2 days before Thanksgiving break. I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the 15 days before Christmas break.
I mean, and I'll just say, last week this past week did a Thanksgiving meal for our teachers. The PTO did, and you wanna see a teacher light up, bring in a hot meal for those people. That was one of the greatest things we did as a PTO is got warming plates for all the food that brought in, so that because now just right now everybody can get down depending on the schedule down to the teachers' lounge at the same time, but just some I just say that as just some intentionality. There's a number of different ways you can say thank you, and we've again as a PTO have just a lot of it has just been the volunteer doing specific asks for parent involvement, kind of creating another avenue for parent involvement. So we do this is an idea, we do days of giving. So right around this time of year, going into Christmas break, teachers are running out of some stuff in classrooms and things like that. So we just have them make lists of things that they're the consumable stuff that they're running out of. And hey, grab a few of these things, send it with your kiddo. That things like that. It's easy for parents to dismiss that as seemingly small sort of stuff. The fact that it's done and that it comes in, I think, says something.
I think that's amazing. Yes. And do it at the beginning of the year. When you're buying your kids school supplies anyway, just get extra. And then if you're sending it in now, teachers they're the most gracious people I've ever met. And they also, the smallest things make the biggest difference.
Yes.
So yes, a hot meal or food that they didn't have to provide and I didn't have to pack my lunch. I think we all like it, but there is something about food in the teacher's lounge that makes everybody smile.
It's better.
If you whisper the word cinnamon rolls in the morning for breakfast, people are like, today? No, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. But then they have something to look forward to. So I think there are some things that cost money, but I think that there are lots of intangible things that don't cost any money that mean just as much. I mean, a thank you note, like I said, I just think that words of affirmation are so many people's love language anyway. And so I think to know that somebody thought about them and sees them, I think that would just bring a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that costs nothing.
Right.
Yeah. When you sort of mentioned, I think, this kind of relationship management that needs to occur between parents and teachers, and kind of I think a consideration that there are multiple viewpoints and perspectives to have, and that, I don't know. I think as a parent, it's just fair to say, and parents, I hope you hear, and dads, I hope you hear this. I love my children, but I'm just going to assume that they're wrong most of the time. I'm just going to assume that. I'm going to take what I know to be true about my regular experiences with my kids, that they are still navigating life. They're figuring things out. They don't always get it right. They have limited perspective on all of that. And then when my kid says oh, so-and-so is unfair, ... I'm just going to at least ask some priming questions of them, right? Do a little pre-interrogation, if possible, of oh, well, what'd you do? What'd you do first?
What'd you say first?
What'd you say first?
He started it. I don't care who started it. What'd you say next?
Yeah.
I think all of that is true. I think that if we can step back and dig down to what happened, and maybe they made a wrong choice and maybe they didn't, but I think just having that conversation with them at home and letting them know you don't always have to be wrong, but the school's not always wrong either.
Yeah.
But we are going to get to the bottom of what happened and come to some kind of resolution. And it's not me just calling and defending you at school, because I want to hear what the teacher had to say, and I want to hear what, and it doesn't matter what happened to the other kid. I think that's really important, because I want to talk to you, my kid at home.
For you as a principal, do you always keep it? Do you always? I'm wondering how the balance goes of that. There is a possibility that the teacher missed something or messed up on this one or whatever. Is that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I know, like, as a boss, I'm always trying to be very, very cautious about, like, I'm never going to throw one of my staff members under the bus. I'm going to be respectful about all of those sort of things. What have you found helpful in kind of navigating the, like, okay, I think we all need to say our sorries, or we need to navigate this and to come to a better conclusion? What is helpful in those conversations?
Sure.
What's first of mind for you?
Yeah. Everybody wants to be heard. So that's number one for me. So the parent calls, I'm like, have you talked to the teacher? No. Okay. But I know they're mad or they're upset or frustrated about something. So I usually will be like, why don't you tell me anyway? I want to know if they have, because I want to know where we are as the boss. Like, you did talk to the teacher and it didn't get taken care of. That's a different problem for a different day. But I also want that parent to tell me what happened, because then I feel like I can diffuse or ask a lot of those clarifying questions. But then I typically don't have the answers for them. I'll find out. I will go figure it out. I will call you back, setting a time to circle back, and then going and, just like with our kids, going and getting that other side of the story. Can you explain what happened, and can you tell me? And there's usually a little bit of truth to both, and then I kind of find myself somewhere in the middle. But yeah, we screw it up, we mess up, we forget, we make mistakes. But I think that we have to model that for our kids and our parents as well. Of like, yep, you're right. We missed it. We can. One of my favorite lines is, "We can always do better," because I believe it. I'm not just saying it, but and then that's my job then to circle back with the adult, because sometimes it's veteran teachers who made a mistake, and other times it's those 0 to 5 teachers who don't yet know, and they're so. Can I just tell you how nervous they are to talk to parents?
Yes.
So nervous. Parent-teacher conferences, phone calls, emails. How many people show up in my office with a shaking hand of like, I got this text and I don't. Sit down, let's talk out, reminding them or teaching them for that first time of how to communicate.
I just want to put yourself, like, you're 23 years old and, like, parents, hear me on this. And 23, 24, 20, whatever, newer teacher, and you've got to schedule 25 to 30, 15-minute, high impact, highly accurate, get to the point, but yet be cordial and open and all of that. Meetings with people who are could be twice your age, could be, like, because I have felt that with some new teachers when I go and sit down, and I'm now, again, I've been in this gig long enough where I'm just like, I'll just break the ice right away and be like, listen, you're killing it, and you're one of my kids' favorite teachers, and we're just
That's so helpful.
We're just, hey, thank you for taking. We're just glad to have the time with you. What can we do to, and that's always the what can we do to help kind of question. But thinking about motivation, motivating our kids, getting them to have motivation.
Well, and I think as they get older, that's even more of a challenge.
Yeah. Someone's got a little senioritis that he's trying to navigate through. With the kid that just is like, I just feel like they don't want to learn. And I want them to at least, like, care enough to, like, do the work that they need to do. And I'm just so frustrated with my kid that he just won't do the stuff. What's going on, Carla? What can we do?
Well, when you find out, let me know. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I think it's back to that. All kids learn differently. All kids are going to be who they were created to be, and that is all different. And so they're not all going to college. They're not all academic, love school. I've met plenty of kids and have one in my house who doesn't love school, but I think that we have to continue to, what is your potential? What are we asking from you? What do we expect of you? We don't get D's and F's in my house. We just don't, because you all can do better than that. And then there's consequences for not doing that, but here's where we are. So I think that finding that motivation, because what are they good at? I have a kid at school right now who he struggles academically. He's going to be the best adult. Like, I cannot wait to see where he goes as an adult. He's the nicest kid, and he's not dumb. School's hard because he just doesn't love it. But I I cannot wait to see where that kid is in 10 years because he's just smart in such a different way that has nothing to do with books. Your son who's in autos, my son's in autos too. I mean, like finding something where he doesn't have to be at school every day, but he's getting educated in a different way where he's learning something that's going to be useful in his life. He may not be a mechanic, but him finding something that's not behind a desk and a laptop or a pencil and tests was huge for him. So I think finding our kids' passions, letting them know school's important and you got to graduate, right? That's not an option in our house either. You're going to graduate. But after that, you have so many choices. But how do we support you along the way? And every kid is different. So if my first kid gets all A's, that's amazing. But my next kid may get B's, and that's really the best they can do. So I think recognizing that and then trying to avoid some of that comparison with our own between our own kids.
So I think supporting kids seems a little bit easier when they're, K through 5th grade or whatever. As they get older, that's a little bit tougher to spend the time in doing things together as far as like reading and supporting their education and all sorts of other stuff. What advice would you give for those of us who have kids in high school and junior high?
Right. So I think high school and junior high becomes we become involved in what they're doing. So I'm sitting in a lot of gyms. I'm attending lots of programs. I'm watching
I saw you in the gym just this last week.
That's where we saw each other. Right. So I think that we are now joining in with them. So it's not so much motivated by mom says we're going to read or do this, but what are you doing? And then I'm going to be there. Our kids have known from very young age, we won't be at everything. So we still love you, but we have other things that we're doing and we have 3 kids. So divide and conquer doesn't even always work. Yeah. But I think joining them in those so that you have questions that you can ask and then their friends and then your social group kind of becomes these families that you're spending all this time with. I think that is the different kind of motivation to when you danced this weekend for show choir was amazing. And that, and kind of providing that encouragement for them to keep on keeping on in those things. And I got to do well enough in school so I can do those extracurricular things. At least at our house, you do.
Yeah. Thinking about, because you just touched on this, the idea and the understanding that not every single one of our kids is going to go to college, that there are different. In public education, when is this shift? Because the shift has begun to happen. And I'm wondering when it happened, what you think caused it, where we are now okay with having you don't have to go to college, traditional college or whatever it is after high school. What made that okay? What made that seem because not everybody has caught up to this yet, but like it is becoming more normalized. And I as having at least one kid that I know is very much like and same for Andy, like is very like definitely has a clear skill set in things. And I think is going to be like, I really think a great successful person, but boy, oh boy, traditional 4-year college, like I would not wish that upon him, unless he changes his mind or whatever. But like, it's not like I feel like I've just got to ram this down his throat. What has caused the change? What has caused, for me to hear from a school administrator that is an acceptable way of thinking, I think is a relatively new introduction into education.
Right. So I think when the state changed some of their graduation pathways, I think that's where it started. I think the conversation started there, I think for the most part. And then I think it's just seeing kids go to college and making it a semester and then coming back home. And then they felt like failures. They felt like I wasn't good at that. I didn't do it. And then everybody's like, well, what are you doing home? Like having all these people ask these questions. Yeah. And then they just were like, well, no, I don't know what to do. And also, I think it's because we don't have qualified workers who are ready to go into all of these trades. And so I think trades are doing a good job and schools are doing a much better job of getting kids out and about. So Andy and I both have sons in autos, but senior year of my kids, I think we've been doing it at Fairfield, 5 or 6 years. The senior year, they can do work-based learning. And I think that has been huge as well. But again, it came about as if you started getting high school credits in junior high, by the time you got to your senior year, you were almost done. My daughter needs 2 credits this whole year. So she's doing work-based learning. Then she goes to school in the afternoon. And I think providing some of those options gave kids the opportunity at 17 and 18 years old to make some decisions about what I want what I want to do, but also we talk a lot about at our house of like everything is really on the table. You really could, but what do you not want to do? And so go try some of these things and be like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to put on a tool belt and go outside and work every day in the cold. Okay,
Yeah.
well that's now we know one more thing you don't want to do. So I think having those conversations, but I think that skilled workers and we just need them.
Yeah.
And so I think we need them
and
at
they
18.
and they will make a lot
Yeah.
of money.
Mm-hmm.
This is the other thing. Like I just I probably have said this before, but there was back in the day when I worked with a lot of contractors in the job that I had, and this was in like flooring, what they call coverings industry, flooring, skilled tile people, things like that. I was in sales. I didn't have a client that was under the age of 35 at the time. Like no young people. And then one day this guy walks in. He was from Middlebury. He was 20 years old. And I find out that he's taking up all these jobs that these larger, like older contractors don't want to touch, whatever. This kid was clearing at 19 years old. He was making $80,000 a year. Right? And probably not even doing the best work, but still, like he had done an apprenticeship for a year after high school under somebody who knew the trade, and had just like picked up this business and got himself a business card and a Facebook page, and was working all over northern Indiana here. Yeah.
And I think people who are willing to train young people and do apprenticeships or internships and then pay for their schooling and will pay for that certification or whatever else that you need, I think that is huge too, because then you can guarantee what your employees are going to be able to do because you provided the training. And I think that that's amazing. But yeah, I think this age gap of my husband's going to be 49 and he works in construction, and he will still say, and has said for almost 20 years now, he's the youngest guy on the job. Guess what? He still is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
There's just not a lot of people who are really young who are going into like, yes, I want to do this. I want to do this skilled work.
And they're going to be able to, I mean, the need is going to be so high. They're going to be able to name their own price. They're going to be able, and quite honestly, they're going to be able to name their own hours, even increasingly so. I just had a conversation with a guy who owns an HVAC company, and again said right out of high school, you can come apprentice with him. You're going to work here's the deal. You're going to work 60 hours a week the first 3 years. And so I think that's the other piece that we have to be talking with our kids about, is just the nature of work. I think something has gotten sideways on this. I
could become an influencer. Make videos.
And I want to work like anybody that's trying to sell you the 20-hour work week or whatever, especially when you are young. It's like no. So it's going to be work, but it is going to be meaningful work. You're going to be kind of charting your own course, and you're going to be able to call the shots in a much more distinct sort of way. And I think those things are helpful to be thinking about, and we can start be having those conversations and learning the things that we need to learn about just the nature of work in school right now.
In school and at home. And I think that those are the kinds of life lessons that I think that we can reinforce at school, but I think it's that work ethic that you're going to probably get at home. And yeah, I agree, Joel. I think that this whole idea of our kids don't get our lives. We've worked a long time to get that to get the house we have and the cars we're driving. You know what I mean? And the vacations. And I think, wow, I wasn't taking a Mexico trip when I was, for my 5th year anniversary.
Yeah.
Right.
We worked, I mean, well, like I graduated into the recession, so I'm going to be 41. Andy's a little bit older.
Not much.
But like,
me too.
Like,
well, I'm older than both of you then.
I had, I was working, me and my wife were working 2 jobs. Before we had kids, we were working 2 jobs. And like, it was hard, and it was it was work, and it was late nights, and it was things like that, which is, again, it's like we were in our early 20s. It's like, what a better time to do that than then. But, my kids don't get like, and I'm even struggling now to like help my kids understand that. We'll tell them these stories of like, yeah, how mom and I have like 1 job right now. Each, like, we used to have 2, right? And We would go to a normal job the first half of the day, and then we had these other rando jobs that we would take in weird hours or whatever, so that we could survive, and so that we could. So hey, remember that first house that you guys, when you were born, where we were? How do you think that happened? And trying to tell those stories a little bit more, but the fact that also like it wasn't always like it wasn't easy.
No, we at our house we say we call it work for a reason.
Yeah.
Because you actually have to do something.
Yeah.
You actually might have to work.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
Yeah.
And so 60-hour weeks are hard, and learning a new trade is hard, and sticking it out when you're unhappy or it's a bad day is hard.
But honorable.
Yeah.
Correct. And the satisfaction you can get out of a hard day's work, whether it's manual labor or just using your brain, is amazing.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that I've loved the whole programs that Fairfield has, as far as, all of the stuff that they do with all of their schools, and they get a chance to do like welding and all sorts of fun stuff that they can see, okay, this is for me, this isn't for me.
Right.
And I know growing up, I never had that, right?
Yeah.
I just went to school and then got out.
And that's a big shout out. I mean, again, for listeners not immediately near us, so Fairfield Junior High, Senior High, just on the edge of kind of a larger town, but serving a little bit more of a rural population out in the country, but really serving, I would say, educating to where a lot of the students are. A lot of these kids, they're a lot of farm, agriculture, farm kids that are. That have parents that are in various trades and things like that, and I'm so grateful for it, because it's like I know my kid. I mean, the idea that his high school experience will actually be preparing him, where he'll have, in terms of like trainings and certifications. I mean, he can almost really go immediately, right out of high school and go start a meaningful profession.
And I think I love that for our kids, but I think that's hard too, because then I'm also like, I don't want you to go work 40, 60 hours a week when you're 19 years old. I want you to be a kid and have some experience. So then talking about that the world is bigger than this place, and money and work and do the things that you want to do when you're younger.
Yeah. Thinking about kind of my last question here, thinking about resources that parents can pursue to help their kids learn. Things that are out there where it's like, man, okay, I want to help I know I need to do a better job at this maybe, or I need to be a little more dialed into my child's education. Apart from direct conversations with teachers, which we want to say yes again and again and again, have that conversation with a teacher. But apart from that, what are some other things that kind of come to your mind that maybe parents could train themselves up a little bit on?
Yeah. I think it depends on what your kid needs, right? If your kid actually needs some extra support and tutoring, then that is available. You have to go find it. There are tutoring resources out there that you can look into. Some schools have teachers who are willing to tutor on the side. Sylvan Center, there's different places that you can find that specific support. And then I think some of the other stuff is, if your kids are going to be on devices, and we just know they are, that's another show for another day. But I think that if they're going to be on their devices, there are lots of places to, I don't know, trick them into reading. Like, right, like if you don't want to read a real book, then you can read on your device. And I think that gives, like, you can have some extra screen time as long as you're reading. Definitely lots of websites, resources, those kinds of things. Again, teachers will give you that best list that kind of match what they're doing in school. And I think it's that extra practice is important. But if they're doing okay at school, right? If they're really turning in their work and trying their best at home, it really boils down to those conversations, that family time, that turn off the TV and all the devices and sit down and have dinner together. Some of those things that seem like back in the day when we were kids, we ate dinner together. I really think that that's just as important at home than reading and doing a little extra math.
Plenty of studies out there about family well-being, human flourishing connected to daily or weekly dinner time. There's that is for sure a thing. Awesome. Well, Carla, this has been a great conversation.
Well, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. But obviously, before we let any of our guests go,
and now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
these are all the great questions that we come up with. Oh, and thank you, Reagan, by the way, for that one wonderful voiceover. Reagan's actually in the studio.
She
right
actually
now.
texted me and said, "Can I ask a question?"
Oh, so Reagan,
yeah, she
Reagan
can.
gets
Sure.
Reagan gets to ask
Now I'm nervous.
Principal Carla the first question on the pop quiz. Reagan, are you ready?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to ask my first question while you can get ready. Okay, Carla. Thanksgiving, just a few days away. What is your favorite Thanksgiving dish? Two-parter. And what is the worst thing that you have ever eaten at a Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh, this is actually the same answer.
Oh, okay.
Sweet. So God bless my mother. She made sweet potatoes when we were growing up, which I despised. I
Yes.
didn't enjoy the
The texture,
brown,
maybe.
the
Gotcha.
texture, but then the brown sugar and the marshmallow
Oh, yeah.
and the no, hated it. But my
Yes.
favorite Thanksgiving food now, sweet potato casserole.
Mm.
So I don't know if I've just grown up or we just have a better recipe. I don't know. I got over the texture maybe too, but that would be my favorite thing.
That's a Thanksgiving comeback story.
Yes, right?
Fantastic. Okay, Reagan,
Okay.
you gotta get on the mic. All right, there you
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
go. Ooh.
Oh my goodness. I thought this was a fun pop quiz, like favorite Thanksgiving food. Well, because we're talking about education, I could talk about my kids. That probably is my greatest achievement. I do love my kids, my personal children. But I think my greatest achievement would be the over, I don't know, do the math, 25 years times 500 kids.
Jeez.
And some of my schools were over 700. So I think that's my greatest achievement. I hope I am truly leaving a legacy for those kids. And I don't have a relationship with every single one of them, but I hope that they know how to respect authority and respect adults, but have relationship with somebody who truly, truly cares about them. And I do love my job and going every day.
Awesome. Okay, Carla, what book should Andy and I be reading right now?
Dude, that's literally the one that I was gonna pull.
Oh, well, beat you to it, sucker.
Have you read The Anxious Generation?
This is
I
on
have not.
This is on the list. Yeah, yes. Anxious
So
Generation.
it's an excellent listen. There's lots of graphs and charts in it, but it really is a good audiobook as well. But you can also read it. I did both. So
The Anxious Generation. Okay. Now that I've stolen Andy's thunder.
Yeah, I gotta look
Sorry.
for a new one. All right. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I wish I would have learned well how to speak a different language.
Oh,
Good one.
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Carla, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you
my
while
gosh.
while at school?
As a child or as an adult?
We're gonna say as an adult.
Okay. Listen, I hate to be embarrassed. I avoid it at all costs.
Absolutely.
At all costs. So
Yeah.
I really, probably being late to like, like staff meeting or
Yeah.
early morning meeting. You're like walking in and you're like, yep, I appreciate all of you for being here all the time.
And here I am.
Yeah, and here I am. Yeah.
Sure.
But everything else I just try to avoid.
Beautiful.
All right, my last question. If there was a sandwich named after you, what would be on it? Like if there's a Carla Hochstetler sandwich.
Like I'm
what
gonna
would
go
you
on
put
down
on
to
it?
the deli and order the Carla. What's the
What's on it?
sandwich?
Okay, so I'm going to give a little shout out to Old Style Deli in Elkhart. It has my
Yes.
favorite sandwich,
Oh my gosh.
which is the grilled turkey, spinach, and then this amazing mustard,
Ooh, yeah.
not too horseradishy though, because I don't like horseradish sauce on it. And then it's grilled and it's, some kind of cheese. I don't know. Amazing.
Old style deli.
You got a last
Tom
one?
Terrific, I think is what it's called.
Oh,
Not the Carla.
not
not the Carla.
but
We'll just call it Tom.
It should be. My final question. I'll do the zombie question. Of all of your family members, who lasts the longest in a zombie apocalypse?
I think my son Moosey lasts the longest. He's gonna outrun them all.
Who's going to outrun them?
He's fast, and he can run forever.
It's the Ethiopian thing.
It is totally.
It is. It's absolutely a thing. That or Ken. It was either that or Kenyan. One or the
Yep.
other.
Yep.
Just a skill set. Well, hey, Carla, congratulations. You have officially passed with flying colors.
Thank you. Would you
the
tell me if I
Dudes
failed?
Dads Blog. No one's ever failed. So if you were the first one, no, we would
tell you.
not. Well, I don't know. We would omit that.
And he's like, yeah, we tell you.
I totally
We don't admit that. Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks again for hanging out with us. If you've got any great ideas for future shows, harsh criticisms, questions, whatever, send them on over to the Dudes and Dads podcast at gmail.com.
We also love hearing voicemail, which we don't hardly ever get any of.
People, leave us a voicemail.
574-213-8702. Reagan sent me one the other day.
Thanks, Reagan.
But
was it a fake one? Yeah.
She's going to call right now.
Leave a message. Hey, you can check out this show and all the other good stuff over at dudesanddads.com.
And if you want to get yourself some awesome merchandise, merch.dudesanddads.com.
Get the shirts. They're lovely, they're soft, they're comfy, and so attractive. Okay, hey, until next time, friends, we wish you grace
and peace.